Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. I'm Ethan Sargent. Abe Crowley's alongside me. I apologize in advance. A little under the weather today, but we're pushing through for the Cincinnati
A
Bengals
fluke
because
game.
now it is officially the offseason. Congratulations to Seattle. Very deserved Super Bowl champions. 29-13. They take down the Patriots yesterday. That was February 8th. Really, I guess we can start off real quick with a couple of brief thoughts about the Super Bowl before we get to the Bengals, because I have a couple thoughts that connect back to Cincinnati, but we'll kind of zoom that out after the game. Defense, phenomenal from Seattle. Absolutely phenomenal. 7 sacks, which ties a Super Bowl record. I wonder what team was the last time to do that. I wonder who they did it against. I wonder.
Drake May
Um,
passed Joe Burrow
he
for
did
most sacks in a postseason.
20 of them.
Um, Drake May's postseason looked a little different than
It was rough.
I checked
It
those
was
than
stats.
rough.
as
He
as the start.
struggled right. I think about 80% of his yards in that game were in the fourth quarter, and really it was kind of quote unquote garbage time. There was a little half a moment where it was like you thought they might be able to get back into it, and then that interception kind of pretty much ended it as a contest. Julian Love had the pick. Nwosu had that long fumble interception return. Um, just an all around phenomenal defensive effort from Seattle. You got to tip your cap to Mike McDonald. What a job, 2 years, right? And he has turned that thing around. And they gutted that roster, right? You think about where it was when Pete Carroll left, right? And you think about the players that were on that team. They had just traded Russell Wilson. They had Geno Smith. It was a good story for a little bit, but they saw an out. They saw an exit. They saw a guy that won 14 games in Minnesota. Yes, it didn't go well in the postseason, but Sam Darnold came in, right? They built around him. They gave him great weapons. They went aggressive at the trade deadline, brought in a dynamic player in Rashid Shaheed who made some electrifying plays for them. Um, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball, because on that defensive side, Ayden, as we saw, I don't know if there's many offenses in football that could really consistently move the ball on that team. I mean, it is just a freak show all over the place.
No, I think the Super Bowl showed more than ever how important, and it's so cliche and it's so overused, and they say it all the time, but it's so true. The trenches. It comes down
Mhm.
to, can you win up front? Seattle was dominant on both sides of the ball. I felt like offensively, the only time Seattle really got into any issue is when they decided to drop back and pass on early downs. They could have just ran the ball with Kenneth Walker all day,
Super
and
Bowl
I don't
MVP.
think I don't think New England could have stopped them. And then defensively, the biggest difference in the game, and it's the biggest difference across the NFL, and maybe this is where you kind of wanted to go with the Bengals, but it's like their ability to rush four and drop seven and still generate pressure time
Ding,
and
ding,
time
ding.
and
There it
time and
is.
time again is unbelievable. They were early in the game, they were sitting in two high safety shells. New England would try to run the football in an obvious, like advantageous box, a situation where you'd want to, and they couldn't. They
Yeah.
couldn't because of the interior defensive line. I mean, that duo that they have is unbelievable. And that's the blueprint. It's
I mean, we weren't doing the Jungle Fever podcast at this point in time, but I know that you and I both were banging the table for Byron Murphy II, and obviously he didn't end up being there for Cincinnati. And I'm very happy with Amarius Mims as a football player, but what could have been, right? And the Bengals are still searching for that interior guy. And I'm glad you brought that position specifically up, because that was one of the points I was going to make. The four teams in the AFC Championship and NFC Championship were one, two, three, and four in interior defensive line pressure rate.
Mhm.
It's
that's
not
just
it,
that
it's not that hard of an issue to figure out. It's
that
something the
is the
Bengals have to do.
NFL. That's just the NFL in 2025, 2026. Like
You
that
have
that
to
you
find a
have
guy
to be able
that
to
can
win.
dominate inside. And the Bengals have not had that. They have tried, but they have not found that guy to rush off the inside. And when you have an elite edge rusher like they've had for the past 4 or 5 seasons, right, it's even more important, right? To even like DJ Reader isn't a really even more than a 5 sack a year type of guy. That's not his game, but he was such a game wrecker on the inside, and he got paid as much as he did because of the double teams and the amount of manpower that it takes. Strong guy, dominant, right? DJ Reader was a great player for the Bengals. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some reunion talks, right? There's That's the kind of thing that they need, that not even that DJ Reader archetype. They need that other archetype. They tried it with Sheldon Rankins. I will give them that. They tried it, and
They splurged.
unfortunately, Sheldon Rankins caught the freaking plague, and he just wasn't himself, right? And then he goes back to Houston this year, he was good. I'm not blaming Sheldon Rankins. I'm glad he's healthy, right? But they
I
tried
am.
it. Right? They absolutely, right? That front office has to understand that that is a point this year. I do want to shout out Christian Gonzalez. Unbelievable game from him, even though it was in a losing effort. I believe he only allowed two catches, had two unbelievable deflections on the deep balls, was only targeted, I think, like four times, and he was amazing. He was great for again the Patriots defense. I think can kind of hold their heads pretty high, even though they gave up some points. I thought they played relatively well. I think that would have been if they had found a way to win the game. I think the Patriots defense would have been at the core of that. But it's a game to forget for Will Campbell too. Again, a rookie in a Super Bowl, and again you have that rookie left side of that line with Jared Wilson as well. They struggle, both of them, big time.
I wouldn't
So
be surprised if they have a conversation about Will Campbell this offseason. It's going to be a difficult one. Um, I think he profiles better as a guard, just given his measurables, specifically his arm length.
yeah,
And he struggled all postseason
yep,
with speed guys who could just get the edge right around. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting thing that New England's going to have to try and solve. But to your point, like the Bengals bringing it back a little bit, like they haven't had that guy since Geno. They've still been searching for it. And you think another thing that stands out to me about this Super Bowl is some of these impact guys that were signed in free agency this offseason for both sides, that don't necessarily fit the Bengals' MO has paid off for both. You think about
yeah,
Dexter or Demarcus Lawrence.
hmm,
That was a guy who a lot of people just gave up on, given his age and in the position that he plays, and how those kind of correlate. He was phenomenal for that team. He was a great leader. Was he the guy who's going to go out there and get 2.5 sacks a game for you? No, that's not who he is. But he's still an impact guy. And then Robert Spillane, for the Patriots as well, a guy with a lot of tread on the tires, for linebackers, and he's again a green dot guy for him. He's able to kind of get the defense where they need to, and he's that veteran presence for that Patriots defense that I think Mike Vrabel really leaned on. And those were two home run free agent signings for two teams that turned things around and ended up in the Super Bowl. So
yeah.
hopefully, if you are
And
the
I really did notice a lot of similarities between this Patriots team and that Bengals team. There are a lot of similarities besides the obvious stuff with the offensive line, right? With all the sacks, but second year quarterbacks taking a big jump, right? Obviously Drake May didn't get hurt, but taking a big jump, right? Being right in the thick of things, swinging big in free agency, like you said. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Um, Looking at the future outlook for the Patriots, we know as Bengals fans just how tough it is to get back there, right? It is very difficult. You were one of two, now you're one of 32 again, right? It is a year to year, week to week league, and nothing is ever given. So their schedule, by the way, next year, much harder, much more difficult. At face value, much more difficult. So
no second year quarterback has ever made it back after
nope.
making it in their second year. So
Yeah, the only
excuse me.
quarterback I believe in the last 25 years to lose their first Super Bowl appearance and then come back and win another one would be Jalen Hurts. So that's the stat that Drake May is now chasing. Joe Burrow is obviously chasing that, and a couple other of these guys as well. So let's zone it back to Cincinnati now. Obviously, it was Super Bowl week, Radio Row. A lot of guys talking. Burrow was around. He didn't really do many interviews, but he was around. Took some pictures, hung out, was in public, was at Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl was fun. The guys that were talking were the receivers. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they hit the road. They were on Radio Row. They went on Pat McAfee. They're starting a podcast. Good for them. They're learning from us. I think some very interesting comments over the course of the week related to the Bengals. We'll start out with, I think, and this was so obvious against anybody who's like living under a rock and is just trying to start rumors or start nonsense. Again, I will, I'll, within YouTube and Spotify's legal guidelines, I will strip if the Bengals trade Joe Burrow. I
I've
that's
said it
how
before. I'll shave my head.
yeah.
I will shave my head.
It's
I
not
work a
happening.
job that I would probably get canned for doing that. I will shave my head if Joe Burrow gets traded.
I see now. I like it's gonna be like 15 years from now. He's gonna get some like minor trade, like when he's like 38, and be like, oh, but no. If he gets traded from the Bengals, let's put it that way. If he
Hmm.
gets traded from the Bengals, I will. Again, you remember, you think all the way back to the Carson Palmer era. Palmer had to threaten retirement to get traded from this team, and that was a bad relationship. Obviously, Joe Burrow seems to be in very good standing. So,
Yeah.
and I think and that goes both ways. So, um, Rappaport shut that down. Will teams call? Yeah, I think they will. Right? Minnesota's the team that just keeps kicking up the tires. They're gonna call. They could offer. There was actually a conversation on well, yeah, obviously there was a conversation on McAfee today. Adam Schefter came on and said that there's some teams trying to expand the draft capital that you're allowed to trade. So right now in the NFL, you can only trade up to 3 years in advance. So right now you can trade 2026, 2027, and 2028. And then when the new league year starts, you can trade 2029 picks. I think it's after the draft, though, you could trade those picks. I'm not 100% sure how that works. They're trying to bring that to 5 years. So you see this a lot in the NBA, right? With some of these trades where you still, like the first and second rounds of the NBA look nothing like the actual standings, not just because of the lottery, but because these teams trade picks like candy. Right, you saw we just put the trade deadline just passed this week in the NBA. Right, teams are throwing second rounders, even first rounders. Teams are just like they get the first picks are not nearly as valuable in the NBA as they are in the NFL. I think is the long story short there. But the interesting thing with the NFL now is teams are trying to get those extra 2 years. So you could see some packages for three, even four, maybe even, dare we say, five first round picks for particular packages. Now, if that ever happens, I mean, my goodness, right? I mean, we're getting into earth shattering trade territory. But um, like if that gets ratified, yeah, some teams are going to call and be like, we'll give you five firsts. Bengals hang up the phone. I,
Yeah.
it's
Get
not
off my
happening.
phone. Lose
Yeah,
my number.
that
It's just it's not
not
gonna
happening.
happen. It
So
never was gonna happen. It was such a non-talker.
but I think the more interesting part of that release that Rappaport came out with was not that, because we all knew that. It was the second part of that release, which was that the Bengals plan, and this is all again according to Ian Rappaport, you can go look this up yourself if you want. The Bengals plan to spend around Burrow. You don't often see these insiders, the Rappaports, the Pelisseros, the Schefters of the world. You don't often see them come out and say the Bengals are going to spend money. It's usually they're going to be reserved. They're going to build around what they've got. I can't even count how many times I've heard that phrase. They're going to go out and build was the phrase from Schefter and Rappaport specifically, where he was like, they're going to go into they're going to be signings. Right. Last year there was one major free agent signing, and it was TJ Slayton. They're going to do more this year. I would bet. I think at least two. Whoops, let's knock my computer over. I would guess at least two or three on day one. That's kind of where I feel like they are right now. Now, there are a lot of caveats to that. Number one is the Bengals could do a number of restructures this offseason, right? Obviously the obvious one is Joe Burrow, right? They can restructure that contract, do the cap wizardry. I'm not smart enough to explain this, but they'll do the cap wizardry. They could open up some space. They could. Would they do that? Who knows? There's a couple other guys they could do that with. Then the Trey Hendrickson comment. We're back in June, right? Remember, we spent, I think, 10 episodes just chronicling the whole saga. You can scroll back on our YouTube. We spent weeks talking about this guy, and here we are again. Number 91. He is scheduled to be a free agent. The tag window opens a week from tomorrow, so the 17th. That window is open until I think the first or second day of March. Um, and there are conversations. This was another part of that release from Rappaport. There are conversations that the Bengals may look to use the franchise tag on Trey Hendrickson. Obviously, they ended up not using the tag last year because they figured out that 1 year deal. Um, I wanted to get your thoughts on what this might mean. Obviously, there are a lot of different scenarios. We kind of touched on it a little bit last week. We were doing our mock off seasons as it could be a potential option, but where could you kind of see this going in terms of if they do? opt to use the franchise tag. It would take one of the best, if not the best, now that George Pickens has been franchise tagged by the Dallas Cowboys. It would take a huge, if not the biggest fish of the free agent market off of the market. What would this mean for the Bengals, do you think, in the future?
It means that they're gonna trade him. Like I don't see a world where Trey gets tagged and plays a year out on that tag. I just don't. There have been conversations and rumblings that he'd be open to playing on the tag or he would play on the tag, and the Bengals would maybe look to do that. I
We're
think
right back where we were in June.
that, in my opinion, that's just more of a leverage play than anything. That's the Bengals saying, "Hey, we might just keep him." I don't see that happening. I don't think it's smart for that to happen. I think the smart thing to do is to tag him. I like tag him and trade him. Like when that deadline opens up, I would not be shocked when I see on my phone that the Bengals franchise tag Trey Hendrickson. Everybody's going to freak out about it. This is not a T. Higgins situation where you tag him and then you use it to extend it and try and work out a long-term deal. That's not happening. So I wouldn't be surprised. Now, in a perfect world, in a world where Aiden Crowley is the general manager of the Cincinnati Bengals, which obviously will make everything better because
Right.
I will never make any mistakes ever.
No,
Um,
never.
I'm tagging Trey, and then I'm calling Las Vegas, and I'm like, hey, Max Crosby, he's done. He wants out. Um, what's it gonna
Probably
take?
set up for this.
We'll we'll give you Trey. We will give you a first next year, and we'll give you our second this year. What say you? I'll hang up and
Yeah.
listen and see what they say. Max Crosby's under contract for, I believe, 3 more years, maybe 2 more
Yeah,
years.
he
Um,
signed a 4 year, 180 or 170 something million dollar extension last offseason. So obviously 3 years left on that deal.
for someone of his caliber and his play is, I mean, it's a lot, but it's kind of a nice market value for him. I think it's slightly team friendly in that way of like team sided, I should say,
Because
not
he
team
was like
friendly.
the first one of those big edge rushers
Right,
to sign, right?
right,
All like Garrett, Watt, Hendrickson, even they were all not free agents, but all seeking extensions at this point. And the Raiders got that deal done first. Credit to them, right? Because that ended
right.
up being the best, right? Because they got the cheapest value, right? That's what I always bang the table for the Bengals to do that because it helps you
Right.
you pay less if you do it first, right? We saw it with
But
Burrow and Herbert, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah.
But the Bengals are the one of the only teams with the cap room, with the ability to win now, and the assets to get the deal done that
Mhm.
it makes a lot of sense, in my opinion. I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But the conversation I don't think is egregiously outlandish. And I think it's a move that signifies we're serious when we say we are going to shore up this defense. That is one guy that comes in and completely changes the way you look at that defense. He is
Right.
that level of game wrecker. Now, Trey, obviously a great player, and you feel the same way, but Max does more in the run game, in my opinion. And Max is a lot more vocal as a leader, as we've seen in his time as Vegas. He feels like one of those guys. And of course, they asked Jamar who he would love to see on the team, and that was his first guy, was Max Crosby. So the players are talking about it. It's a move that I think makes a lot of sense. Is it a move that necessarily fits the Bengals MO? No.
I mean, that would be my biggest holdup to this, obviously, is like the Bengals will probably lowball that offer, right? The Raiders are allegedly looking for a similar kind of package that the Packers got for Micah Parsons, which was two first round, correct me if I'm wrong here, two first round picks and a premier player in Kenny Clark. The Bengals can
Right.
offer the premier player. They can offer I don't know if they want to give up their first this year for it. That would be interesting. I mean, that pick's in the top 10, right? That's a very good
Right.
pick. So you got to be careful with that. The Raiders already are picking number one, and you know who they're likely taking, Mr. Mendoza out of
Right.
Indiana. So, would there be a conversation? Maybe. But I guess I'll go the pessimist angle here. I just can't see. right? I can't see that the Bengals do it. And as much as I love it, right? Max Crosby, stud, right, would instantly, like you said, elevate everything on this defense, I think. So um we'll obviously, and I'm glad you brought up that Jamar mentioned that because he also mentioned that another player he mentioned, and we discussed this in the previous segment about elite defensive tackles, is Titans defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. Now, this one I can really see because Jeffrey Simmons a little older, a little now he seems to really like Tennessee. That's the only thing about this. I don't really know if Simmons would be like kicking up a stink to leave per se. I like Crosby seems to be doing at the moment, but elite interior player. I don't know if there's three better, right? Maybe Dexter Lawrence. Maybe a couple of these other guys. The list is short, right? And he would instantly elevate your floor, right? Because you would now have, and in this situation, maybe you do just try to keep Trey and you do Trey and Simmons. Think about how difficult that would be to stop, right? So again, my big thing is if you got to take some big swings, whether it's via trade or whether it's via free agency. I think we saw a couple guys yesterday that we discussed last week in our mock offseason. Clavon Chason had a sack in this game. Boye Mafe had a sack in this game, right? Kobe Bryant was phenomenal all over the field in this game. Played really that whole Seahawks secondary was really good, but Kobe Bryant was great, right? Players that the Bengals may well look at in free agency. Kobe Bryant would be a homecoming. We talked about that last week, back to Cincinnati. So it's
It's
all,
interesting you say that about Simmons. I'm the opposite. I think that the Simmons thing is a little less likely, in my opinion, just given the recent hire with Robert Saleh being a defensive guy. Simmons, obviously, like you mentioned, likes Tennessee from everything that we can see. And he's or yeah, he's a little bit older. He's also under contract, and like he has no like incentive to want out, and I feel like it would cost more. In my opinion, I think it would
yeah,
cost
I
more
don't
to
know
get
what
him.
his contract situation is. I'm not sure, right? And again, Tennessee is a little bit of an interesting situation, right? Like, obviously, you have a new head coach. You saw something from Cam Ward, right? I think that there's some it's small, but there's some positivity there. And I mean, the same technically goes for LA, right? These are all like probably less than 5% chances of happening, but we can dream, right? It's February. It's
It's that
February
time of the
anyways.
year,
We
right?
can we can do it, right? So, um. I guess while we're on the topic, like Aiden Crowley's a GM, he can swing any trade in the NFL. Give me one player besides the two guys we talked about that you've got all. I mean, the Bengals don't trade picks, so you've got all these first rounders. You've got every player the Bengals have. Who's a guy that you could build any package, right? Who's a guy you're bringing in for this team to kind of take that next step?
Oh wow. Um, I
Fun
don't.
little exercise.
Yeah, I mean, my answer, my like in the realm of like somewhat realistic possibility, like my answer would be Max Crosby.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I just think he fits so well into what the Bengals want and the Bengals need. But I guess if I had to go somewhere else, um, I don't know. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent, but like a John Franklin Myers with Denver, like I'm just thinking about those absolute game record defensive tackle three techniques, like a Jeffrey Simmons type. Um, though, like somewhere on the defensive line, would be my answer. I don't think you sell the farm for an elite linebacker, in my opinion. I guess if we're living in a fantasy world, I take Nick Iamori away from Seattle and just stick him on the Bengals defense. That would be awesome. So that's my answer, I guess. If
Well,
we're if
that was
we're
another. The Nick Gaiman already mentioned that the Bengals met with him in the pre-draft process. So,
Yep.
that's lovely.
Yeah.
Again, the way that Eamon Worry, I think if he was there at pick, what was the Bengals' second round pick, 40 something, he may well have been the pick, right? But the Seattle took him with like I think the third pick of the second round or something like that.
Mhm.
They made a great selection. Hats off to them. Eamon
Yeah.
Worry.
Fantasyland, Nick Iamori is playing alongside DJ Turner and Dax Hill, and we're winning the Super Bowl. What say you?
Hmm, hmm. I mean, there are some really fun things you could do. I mean, like, what if we went out forget I was thinking offense. Like, what if we just create an absolute monster? What if we go get like Orlando Brown Jr. is a good football player, but I think with the athleticism issues and with everything else that's going on, we're in fantasy land, right? We can trade for whoever we want. This is oh man, I'm trying to think about how I do this correctly. Um like I think about 3 or 4 years ago, my answer would have been Trent Williams. Just lock the left side down. Right. No, Joe Burrow doesn't even have to think about his blind side. Right. Let that happen because that would be a lot of fun. Um, I'm trying to think of like the modern version of that answer. Who do you think the best left tackle in the NFL is?
Oh, Panay.
Yeah. Let's end all the debates. That'd be awesome.
Why
That'd be
not
awesome.
both?
You think about that, right? Obviously, that was imagine the Jungle Fever pod a few years ago, like the week before the draft. Panay Sewell versus Jamar Chase, the debate.
That
It was probably the biggest draft debate that any team has really had over the last few years. Everybody knew that it was going to be those two guys, right? It was kind of telegraphed at that point. Trevor was going one, Zach Wilson was going two. The Niners traded up and they were going quarterback. It could have been Mack, it could have been Trey Lance, whoever. Obviously, those were all strikeouts besides Lawrence. The Falcons are going Kyle Pitts. Tip your cap to Atlanta. Thanks for that. And then where does Kyle Pitts end up free agency, by the way? That could be a fun free agency to monitor.
Cincinnati.
That'd be fun. I'd love that. Um,
Um, no, it's either Panay or it's Lane Johnson probably.
Yeah, I think
Lane's just a
at
little bit
modern
older.
Lane's old. Lane, there's rumors he might be retiring. So, um, yeah, I think Penei Sewell might be my fantasy answer there.
Okay.
Just think about that. Think about Joe Burrow not even in having to think about the left side of his line. I mean, you know how good a processor he is with a not great offensive line. Like you lock it down, you give him a guy like Penei Sewell on the outside. You've already got a up and coming, fantastic player in Mims on the right. You know, the guards showed improvement over the course of the season. Karras is still at a high level. I mean, that's probably a top 7 or 8 line in the NFL right there. I know that's crazy to say,
Hey, and we
but
saw Cody Ford go out run around. Panay Sewell
we
can move
do.
with the best of them.
Hey,
So
I
he
want to see
he moves
Penei
better
Sewell.
than like any
Dan
offensive
Campbell.
lineman.
Dan Campbell. If you by chance happen to be watching this, um, run Penei Sewell on like the Caden Proctor screen that Bama did in
He moves. He moves so
Dude,
well.
Panay, I mean, he had the one fourth down in like the one I think it was a few seasons ago. I mean, Ben that might have been a Ben Johnson play, who knows? But we know that Dan can still get tricky with it, right? So yeah, that'd be fun. I
No,
think I think Panay Sewell. I guess for defensive player, I mean, yeah, Eamon Warrior would be great. I think, just draft Caleb Downs. Let's go get a game changer, right? I think again, because I was kind of looking at that today. There's a great tool, by the way. This is how we can kind of wrap this episode up. There's a great tool that I found that we might be able to use. It's that armchair GM thing that I see. I saw it on Twitter. Um, where basically it kind of just lets you do everything in the offseason, right? Mock draft simulators are so last year, right? This is lets you do everything. Lets you do free agency, lets you do contract restructures, lets you do trades. Now, the trades are a little glitchy. Like it kept giving me Keon Coleman for a fourth round pick. I'm taking that, by the way. Um, but it kept giving me, I mean,
hey,
Keon,
you can cut Jermaine, but you can't kill the idea of Jermaine Burton. He'll still be in the
trade him
building.
in
We
the
want
aggregate.
another headache guy that just won't be reliable. Hey, come on down. We'll fix you. I promise. It's like a toxic relationship with your ex.
I mean, I think that this tool is really cool. I used it a couple of times the other day, and I'm trying to think of like I did that trade. I ended up like it lets you kind of build like a lot of your cap, right? So like you can make cuts. It's basically that a less knowledgeable version of that sheet that we use. Obviously, Denner is on top of everything, so he knows all the intricacies. This one is you can do it for all 32 teams. Um, but yeah, I think doing an exercise like that is really fun. We had fun with it last week, I thought.
Yeah, we can do
So
that next episode. I'm down. I'm down.
yeah, we'll see what we can do. It's basically the same thing. But well, I mean, though we do have a few more minutes. I was gonna pull up. I'm trying to find it. The list of all the free agents. Um, for this upcoming season. Um,
You're just gonna rattle them off.
there
Like,
were, I'm going to rattle off the relevant ones. Trying to find it.
I mean,
Well,
it's
here's the top offensive free agents. This is off of PFF. Shout out to them. You got Kenneth Walker, by the way, Super Bowl MVP. He's a free agent, by the way.
he's gonna get paid by Seattle.
Yep. Mike Evans. Obviously Pickens has been re-signed. Malik
Bring him to
Willis.
Cincinnati.
Malik Willis might be the most intriguing free agent of any offensive player, right? You think about a team that could give him an opportunity after what you saw in Green Bay, right? Is that a potential I mean, we just saw it with Sam Darnold, right? If you don't succeed, right, try again in the NFL. Tyler Algier, very, very talented running back, taking Bijan's carries, taking his fantasy points.
I think Atlanta retains him.
Yeah. Brees Hall. It's not a bad running back market. I'll say that. There's some very solid running backs coming off their rookie seasons or their rookie contracts. Um, Kevin Zeitler, maybe. Could he come back again? We've had this
Yeah,
conversation the last couple of years, I think.
yeah.
Um, Alec Pierce, I think, is a very intriguing name. Keep an eye on that number because what was his average yard per catch this year? Like
It was like
26?
27 or
It was
something.
ridiculous. Trying to find the defensive free agents one now, but like you could think of a few off the top of your head that we already have talked about, right? The Devin Lloyd, Quay Walker, both of those linebackers very deep in free agency this year. We discussed that last week. Um, Edge rushers, you've got a lot of those guys coming off their rookie contracts. Leo Chenal, by the way, and linebacker as well. Um, you've got guys like Boye Mafe, who we discussed last week, Clavon Chason. Um, there's some. I mean, obviously Trey. If we don't tag him, he would probably be in line to get one of the bigger free agent deals of any team, right? If he does end up hitting the open market.
Yeah.
Um,
He's, I don't think he will.
yeah, I really like my answer would have been a whole lot different last week, but I think we're back. Here we go. Khalil, I found the list, by the way, that I was looking for. Khalil Mack. Um, that's another premier edge rusher route. Yeah, he's a little older,
He's
but
a,
still a very good player. Joey Bosa is a free agent again after a solid year in Buffalo, I thought. Bobby Wagner. You want to talk about a real unk. That's an unk right there.
but that's somebody that the Bengals would want and low key would fit. Like I wouldn't be that mad at a guy like Bobby Wagner. Can he play in coverage? No. You and I have a
Those
better
knees are
chance of
toast.
dropping in coverage and making a play than Bobby Wagner does at this point in his career. But is he going to run downhill north and south and run fit and thump somebody? Still, yeah. And has he played a lot of football? Yeah. And so you line him up next to Demetrius Knight, who can be a little bit more of that, I guess, coverage backer if you really need him to be. Um, I don't necessarily hate it. Do I love it? No, but I don't think it's as bad as some people want to make it out to be.
Yeah, I don't disagree. John Franklin Myers,
He is going to
keep an
get
eye on
a
that one.
massive bag because the interior defensive line
Not good.
class is so bad and he is so good. Like if there was ever a time to be John Franklin Myers and be a free agent, it's right now. Like
Yep.
he is going to get near $20 million.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of money. He's going to
Yeah.
get himself paid. Couple of decent corners, Jalen Watson from Kansas City, Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay, two guys. Watson, especially, seventh round pick, kind of came out of nowhere and has played really high level football for the Chiefs, helped them win a Super Bowl, helped them get to another. Um, Safeties, we obviously talked a lot about this last week. You've got Brian Cook, you've got Cam Curl, you got a couple other decently. I mean, the safety market's a little weird. Like, I think that's the position that the Bengals will take the big swing in. Me personally, I think that they're going to go free agent big swing, whether it's Cook or Curl or somebody else. I think they take a big hack at that position.
You might have
Back to
some
line.
Geno Stone buyer's remorse from
Yeah,
that move, but I hear you.
thanks. Demario Davis. Demario Davis, Devin Bush back at linebacker, those two guys. Bush was a nice reclamation project, right? Did not work out in Pittsburgh, bounced around a little bit. Very, very good year in Cleveland alongside Carson Schweisinger this year. I think he's in line for a nice paycheck. And then Odafe Owe. an old friend from the division, right? Was in Baltimore, moves over, had a very, very good bounce back in LA, along with Jalen Phillips. Both of those guys got traded at the deadline and played very well at their respective. It was almost like rentals in baseball, right? Where those guys that are coming off, like, are about to become free agents, and you see teams do it all the time where the prospect hauls aren't huge, right? But they trade for big players that are heading into free agency, and those players raise their value a ton. I think Phillips and Owe both did that. Phillips in Philadelphia, Owe in Los Angeles. So, here's my last question for the day. And we're going to discuss all of this in detail over the next few weeks. How much average annual value will the Bengals' biggest free agent contract be?
Hmm. That's a good question. I like that one. Um, because I'm trying to go by position, what the
It's
average.
really, I know we could probably do a whole episode on this because you got to go multi-layered. You got to think about where do they take the big swing, who gets paid the most, which positions get the most money. There's a lot that goes into it.
Hmm. Um, I don't know if this is a bad number, but this is a number that just like came to my head. How does 18 mil sound?
Yeah, I
That
mean
feels
that could be
somewhat in the
that could be
ballpark.
a
That's a great
solid
safety.
swing. That could be a solid swing at one of probably not the highest level edge rusher, but one of those like a Boye Mafe type. I could see Boye Mafe getting a number like that. Um, Something like that. Yeah, I'm in. I was thinking a little bit less. I was thinking like 16 because I
Sure.
think the big swing is in the secondary or it's at linebacker, and I don't think you're going to pay over 20
No,
million per year for one of those guys.
no.
Um, I just don't think they take the big swing at edge with what they've already spent in draft capital at that position
I
with
just go
Brett
back
Murphy.
to what Duke said in his press conference, and he said, "If we're gonna build it, we're gonna build it in the trenches." And I'm taking his word for it. So we'll see. John
Time to
Franklin
put up or shut
Myers,
up. Time to
you
put up or
are
shut
a
up, Mr.
Cincinnati
Tobin.
Bengal.
Time to put up or shut up, Mr. Tobin. It is officially that time. We're courting all these free agents. They're all Bengals. Come on through.
Hmm.
Every single one of them. I don't care. So that'll wrap things up for this week. We'll come back next week. We'll do some fun stuff. Again, this is the fun part of the year. We could do the. We don't have to grope and whine about the team anymore. We can have the. We can
We
do the
can have
fun
blind
exercises.
optimism.
Yep. Yep.
We're winning it
Until
all next year.
September when they lose week one to probably
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. So, all right, we'll be back next week. We'll have more off-season talk. Cincinnati Bengals. This has been Jungle Fever Pod.